Hi guys, and welcome to another video. So Sunderland have just come away with another 3 points at the stadium of like a 2-0 win against Watford, and it was an interesting game to say the least. It was absolutely an interesting game, but was it the most exciting? It probably wasn't. It definitely got a bit more feisty as the game wore on, but in general it wasn't too entertaining. But we'll get into the game. We did start off with Pato in goal. Huggins started at right back and Hume was swapped over to left back. I'm not too sure what the thinking was behind that, but I'm not complaining at all, and we'll discuss that later on. We had Bullard and O'Nien, the usual centre-back partnership. Then we had Daniel, we had Job, and then up top behind Burstow we had Patrick Roberts playing as a sort of 10 role, and then had Abdullah Bar on the right, Clark on the left of course, and in behind Burstow, as I did mention, which means that Pritchard, it was alluded to by Tony Mowbray in the pre-match presser for this game that a key player has been injured, and a lot of people were speculating that it was Dan Neil, some were speculating Trey Hume, some Dan Bullard, and everyone was sort of prepping for the worst, and of course it turns out that it was Pritchard that has the injury. We don't know what the extent of the injury is, but as key or as important or as good and talented as I do think Alex Pritchard is, I think because we are so stacked in that position, it isn't the absolute end of the world. Whereas if we did lose someone like a Dan Bullard or a Dan Neil, I think it'd be a hell of a lot worse. We're very fortunate in that sense. Of course, it's never fortunate to pick up an injury to add to the long list of injuries we have. But Pritchard, it's just a player that we can quite easily just chop and change. So it's sad that it's gone, but you know we have like Patrick Roberts to step in for him to sit in his position, or Bar if he has to. Do you know what I mean? It isn't the end of the world. But yeah, so that was the lineup for the game, and getting into it, it was quite frustrating for me personally, particularly throughout the first half. Very, very frustrating because they came here and they weren't here to just sit back. They want to control the ball. That's what they do. We definitely weren't going to be able to get 70-odd% possession like we do against every other team. And they have that confidence of having their backline stepping forward. And they had a very, very high line. And this was my sort of main complaint, or sort of only really complaint in that first half, is that they had such a high line, yet we were just so hell-bent in playing all the balls, or playing all the football in front of them. It was all well and good playing the nice little triangles and the tricks and the flicks and the lovely football on the eye, but it's just doing it all in front of him. And you had those centre-backs, particularly like Hoyt, at the back, Porteous as well. They don't have much pace, have little to no pace. In fact, they looked incredibly stiff on the turn, and we just weren't playing balls in behind. No one was making any runs in behind. In fact, there was no movement from any of the front lot at all. We'd pick up the ball, the amount of times, O'Nien, where you could see he was picking up at the back, and he's screaming, someone move. Burstow stood still, Clark stood still, Pat Roberts is coming deep for it. Make the run in behind, man. It was glaringly obvious what we should do, and we just didn't do it once. We didn't try it once. And it was frustrating, just the whole front line just stood still, and they just wanted to play everything with the back to goal. And we were never going to create anything or much, and it took until the 38th minute for us to get a strike on target, or for any strike on target in the game, I might add. And it did fall to Job around the edge of the box. He shuffled it round. He did have Clark. I think it was on the break that we'd nicked the ball on the right hand side. I think Bar cut inside. It eventually found itself to Job. Couldn't give it to Clark. He had acres of space, but Job did take a little bit too long on the ball, and he struck it. And he's dragged it relatively easily into the keeper's arms, and that was our first attempt on goal. Watford, they did have threats of their own on the break. They did look half decent. They just didn't have that killer instinct. They did cut in from left to right at times. And what did worry me is just how soft we were in the challenge to allow them to drift inside. I know there's not exactly solid tacklers in the likes of Bar on one side of Clark on the other, but they were cutting in off the wings. And we're just kind of allowing them, and then we'd allow them to brush passes, and then they'd give up, be it Clark or Bar. They'd just let them do it, and then they'd just stop and stand still. And it was lazy as hell, and that was so frustrating. They did that a couple of times, and luckily they didn't punish us, and they did have a couple of half chances from the outside of the area when they did cut him from left to right or right to left, and they'd go straight to Pato without really testing him too much, if that makes sense. I think they had a couple that went way over the bar as well. But we did end up breaking the deadlock, and my God, this is the interesting bit when I mentioned the word interesting earlier. Niall Huggins decided that he's Lionel fucking Messi out of nowhere. Go and watch the goal. It was absolutely incredible. Huggins was having a fantastic game anyway. Absolutely fantastic. At times he was dragging us up that right hand side when no one was doing out. And his defensive work was outstanding. There were times where, he would try and bring it up the right-hand side, and he might lose it with a bad pass or whatever, and he'd be absolutely putting 120% back into the shift to get the ball back, and he would get it back almost every single time. I think every time, pretty much, he would get a challenge and win the ball back. He was outstanding, but he picks up the ball on the right-hand side. He cuts it from right to left. He keeps going, and he keeps going. He finds himself into the box, takes on his man, and always with his toe, he's just punted it into the top left-hand corner, hits the underside of the bar, crashes into the back of the net to send the fans wild. 1-0 just before half-time. It was the perfect time to score, and then we sort of weather a bit of a storm, and we see it through to half-time, 1-0. Absolutely ideal. Second half, I feel like Watford, they're bringing on players, because a lot of their players, their heads, they've gone so quickly. And I mean, we were still winning. I thought the referee was shite. Some of them were ridiculous. I mean, don't get me wrong, they commit foul after foul after foul. And a lot of the time, I do admit, and I say when the referee is giving like bad fouls, it weren't a foul, but it was 9 times out of 10, they were just needless fouls all over the pitch. Players were getting booked. I think they had 5 or 6 bookings in the game, and a man sent off right towards the end, which we'll also get into. But the heads are just gone. They were losing it. They were chucking Burstow all over the place. And even then, they weren't giving any. Burstow was lobbed around like there were no tomorrow by Haydn Potts, and the ref didn't give absolutely anything. And some of them were so blatant as well. But then you have the others where he was giving them. But it must have been a frustrating one for Watford fans to watch, because, like I say, it was just constant fouls, constant, and they were needless half the time, as I say. So they come out, they were changing players up. Some of them were, they were just losing their heads. It become to a point where it did look a bit Sunday League. When you just come out on a Sunday and you're up against a team that you just know they're better than you on the day. So you get pissed off, you start lashing out and kicking at players because you're just not that good. And that's what it looked like to me, Watford. Their discipline was horrible. It was fucking awful to watch. And their manager and fans would have been fuming at that, because they lost their heads. Their heads had gone, a load of them. But either way, we start to press, and we keep pressing them, and eventually we do put a ball into the box. It's a lovely ball, and Job does get it at the back post. He knocks it back across goal, and there is Abdullah Bar, who, by the way, I've noticed recently has one hell of a leap on him, but he meets it at the back post and puts it into what's practically an empty net. But he has to put the work in and get there to make it 2-0, and he does. He buries it, 2-0. Game is dead and buried at this point. And even then, I feel like we really could have pressed and gone for more, but we just didn't ask questions. And like I said, Burstow, in the first half, a lot of the front line, they didn't move. It was awful in that sense. It really was awful. That's why it took our right back to go and do the job for us. But that second half, Burstow did actually start to make a few runs, and we ignore it. The amount of times, in the first half to an extent, I guess, as well, with certain movement, but we just didn't take that gamble with those killer passes. It was always the safe option, even when we were 2-0 up, a lot of the time. We tried it a couple of times with Burstow, and he'd try and make the run in behind, and he'd sort of take the he'd ask for it to be squared to him, or he'd try and curve his run in behind, and we'd try to dummy it, pretend to give it him, then we'd go backwards, or someone else would make a run on the inside. We'd think about it, then go backwards and play it back and make the easy sideways pass. And there was just no gambling, there was no bravery in that sense in the attacking side of things. We just didn't gamble on anything. Be it take a man on, Clark tried a few times, Patrick Roberts did well. But I'd like to say, in the attacking third, when players actually were and did decide to actually make a move, we wouldn't give it. We'd think about it, and we'd dilly-dally on the ball, and it'd just allow Watford to regroup, and then we slow it and slow it and slow it, and we go backwards again. And that's when we start forcing ourselves into this slow brand of football, which it is nice to watch, to keep possession, I get it, but when those opportunities are there, we don't take them. We really need to stop making those runs in behind, because if we hadn't got those couple of goals, then Watford would have got the chances. But like I say, anyway, either way, I'm not going to moan about it. It was just very frustrating at times when you see blatant passes that are on, and we refuse to give it, and we just go backwards, and it kills off what could have been a good attack, if that makes sense. That's all it is. It's a minor frustration. But we do see the game out. Then 2 or 3 minutes left of the game, I think 87th, 88th minute, their lad Andrews, he come on as a sub, and he's going to, I think Jack Clark come deep for it, gets the ball, he plays the ball, and literally a good second or two too late, Andrews just goes flying in, lunges down him, and he gives a straight red. I was quite surprised that he gave a straight red at first, but then looking back, it is just a stupid challenge. Everyone's lost the red, everyone's going in on everyone. Watford players are. He's sent off straight away, straight red for him, goes down the tunnel in a huff. But we see the game out. Lewis Hemia and Roy Singh did come on, as did Rigg, but there was literally 60 seconds left, if that, when them lot come on. But we saw the game out, 2-0, 3 points in the bag, another 3 points in the bag. We're currently 4th on, I think it's 19 points, if I do remember correctly. Yes, we're on 19 points, just a point behind Preston, who are, of course, on 20 points. They're in 3rd. We're 6 points behind Ipswich, who are in 2nd. Ipswich flying at the minute, but, all we can do, and you can just see when you look at the table, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams below us on 16 points. So literally, we lose one game, a handful of these teams win, and everything can just chop and change. So this league, it's so hard. We knew it would be anyway, but consistency is absolutely key, and we've got a really difficult run of games coming up, starting off with Borough at the weekend at the Stadium Light, which is going to be a massive one, and I don't know whether we're going to have to chop and change the team a little bit, because these lads are going to be exhausted, playing, of course, Wednesday night now, and they'll be playing the early kick-off on the Saturday as well. It would have been ideal if we played yesterday, but, of course, that's just Championship football. The 3-game weeks, aren't they, at times, so very, very happy. Anyway, guys, you guys let me know what you thought of the game. And if you have enjoyed, please hit the like button for me. It'd be massively, massively appreciated. And subscribe to the channel if you're not already to become a fully fledged member of the Sarny Army. But for now, take care. Stay jammy.